and motivating, but only for me. Like, there's nobody there. There's nobody there. I used to put the 10 balls out along the 45 and sprint from the 21, pick it up, solo it in, kick it over the bar, go for the next one. And if I missed one, I'd be standing in the pitch, cursing at the top of my voice, roaring at the top of my voice, like, you can imagine the word that I was using in that moment. And then I'd set them up again because I didn't get the 10 out of 10. And a friend of mine, his father was a digger man, and he used to sometimes take the stone out of the river down beside the pitch, And I remember he went back and told his wife, because I used to be in there to the house all the time, that young fella's demented, or he's not right in the head, because he's down on the pitch and he's roaring at the top of voice to himself. But I just knew that I had to do it. I had to do it. I made a commitment that I was going to do it, and the commitment wasn't even to myself. I was a byproduct of the commitment, and I do think, like, we have now 34 lads in the senior squad, and I know exactly, their ambitions and what they want to do and what they want to achieve, but the why is the most important part, and I always use the example of, the stage here now. If a loved one was hanging over that and it was a cliff, how hard would you hold on? And that is the feeling that's always the feeling I go back, and how hard would you hold on to make sure that they didn't go over the side of that, and that you get them back on the right side of it. Because that moment is coming in every championship game. Every championship game, that moment is going to come where you are pushed to a moment where you have to decide, am I going to let this go, or am I going to double down? And I don't believe that you can hold on unless you know why. That's the moment where why becomes absolutely to the surface and critical. And so in that moment, it's actually not about football. It's not about football. It's about your family. It's about the person that helped you along the road. It's about critical moments in your life. It's about, what Donegal means to you. Like, we know, the most important thing for us is the people of Donegal. Like, we are in a privileged position where we can actually do something and create an energy that impacts on nearly every single person in this room and their kids, and getting up in the morning and being excited and thinking about that game. And we can actually have an impact on people's mood, and that's a very privileged position to be in. So you have to try and understand that, I suppose, in the first instance, and make the most of it when you have that opportunity. Ryan McHugh's in the room there, or was in the room anyway, and has given so much to Donegal, but Ryan's career will come and go. That's reality. Like, it is like that. I thought, that I was going to be there forever. It doesn't happen. You break your leg and it's gone. It's like it's gone in the blink of an eye. So you have to try and make the most of every single moment, and to do it justice, you should give it your very, very, very best shot. And I'll finish with this. The last thing for me is, there's nothing wrong with being second place. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem...
Really?
No.
You're okay with runner-up?
I'll tell you, this is the God's honest truth. When I was growing up, I was a terrible loser. And my mother would have testified that. I would come in and I would not be in good form. If we got beat, I would not be in good form. And I've become very comfortable with that now, for one reason and one reason only, that I try to put myself in a position, and the team, that I couldn't have done any more. And if you can get that position in your business, and you can get that position in anything in your life where you say, right, I'm going to give this my best shot. And if at the end of the day, if we give it our best shot, and I give it my best shot, and Ryan and all the other lads, you still have to play Dublin. You still have to play Kerry. You still have to play Galway, all these teams. And even when you do everything right, it doesn't give you a guarantee that you're going to win. But what it does give you is that you're going to be competitive. You're going to be in the fight. And that, like, Division 1 this year is the most competitive I have ever seen it in my life. And so no matter if we get everything right this year, there's no guarantees. It just means that we're going to be in the mix. And that has been proven already in the league games. We beat teams maybe that we haven't beat for 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 years. But that doesn't mean we're going to beat them in the summer. It just means that we're in the mix with those guys at the moment. And I think for every business, it's the exact same thing. You know, if you do everything right, you have a chance to be in rubbing shoulders with anybody if you get all your processes in a good spot.
Patsy, it's very clear for Joe and for Jim speaking there that they had clear whys, real drivers. I think if my child was unwell or I'd lost a family member and I said I'm going to have a legacy and it's going to be your legacy, that would drive me to the end. Did you have a clear why?
No. No, not really.
To be honest. You know what? I was kind of hoping you'd say that because I don't think everybody does have a clear why.
No, I don't think. I think a lot of life's out there, you know, when you can be very lucky at times and get into positions. And lucky's the wrong word, but you know, you get yourself into positions, and one thing follows another, and you make the best of it. And I'm a great man for saying, you know, take the opportunity and drive the bejesus out of it. And you know, I was given an opportunity in running at boarding school, and I ran with it. I ran with it all my life because it was me. It was this thing, this opportunity, and I got it. And I was lucky then to go to university in England, and I ended up with some of the best athletes in the world, and I learned from them. I was on the team with them, and for 4 or 5 years, and that was a learning. And I was lucky. I could have ended up at a university somewhere that nobody gave a tinkers about bloody athletics. So basically, I took it, and I learned, and I didn't know I was learning, and I didn't know I had the passion and the energy that I had. But when I look back, I'm 77, going 78 now. So when I look back on it, I think I'm able to assess it. But when you're flying through it and you're going at a wild rate, you don't stop to think half of the time. So then I got from there, and I came back to Donegal and couldn't get back to Donegal quick enough, and so on, looking to get a job teaching in Glenties, and a beautiful town, beautiful area, and that was good. And I was explaining to Jim earlier on there that athletics in Donegal, this is what I'm kind of known for now, obviously, although I was head of sport at the IT, people think it's my full-time job when you're given so much to it. And I was head of sport at the IT, and I was reserve officer in the army, and a commandant in the end up, and all that. These were things that influenced me, obviously. And I was lucky in the environment that I was in. The army was good to me because they gave me time, and they understood me, and I loved that environment. And the other thing was the ATU, which is ATU now, and I came in there and I got 40 years in there, and they put up with me. That's the best thing to say, because my head, I did the job, but my head was all over the place. There was athletes that I had to think about and things to do, but that was my story. And one of the things I was listening to the boys, I was thinking to myself, now what drove me? Fear.
Fear of what?
Fear of not being able to achieve that target. Fear of not getting where I wanted to be that year. Fear of some athlete saying to me someday, "Fuck off, Patsy, I'm not doing it anymore," because they were a vital member of my team. There was all of those things. And at the start of the season, who's in the hall? Who's listening to me? Where is such and such a boy? Where's such and such a person? I've got to get into them. I've got to get to them. And I always kind of think too about life, you know, and how I explained it to myself was that a lot of people in work, and business people relate to this, particularly people who own their own business. A lot of people in life go 9 to 5 and they switch off. But if you own the business, if you run the team, if you're at the Olympic Games, or you're wherever, there's no 9 to 5. So, and you don't even think 9 to 5. So your mentality is completely different, and you don't settle. And I used to, as a kind of a throwaway remark, you know, I was fortunate as well, and that my family stuck it, you know, because I used to look around me in a way, and I went to 4 Olympic Games. I managed Ireland for 30 years, went all over the world, and I used to look at the people that were in my position, and there weren't very many of them in stable relationships. And I used to think, Jesus, I'm a lucky man, because if I don't go home at home.
We must be very placid.
And she was just a girl from home, the same as myself, but she supported me, and she didn't leave me. So basically, because basically to explain that as well, and I'm sure business people at times in their life, when they're in the house, they're not in the house because their head's ficking somewhere else.
So do you have to be quite selfish to be successful? Is that what you're
Jesus,
saying?
you have to be, but you see, you won't give in that you're selfish. That's not a word.
I'm not calling you selfish.
No,
by the
no,
way,
I don't care.
I'm just saying
You can never give in to the wife that you're selfish because that's another one. Yes,
that's a whole other subject. That's a whole other subject.
That's another subject. So basically, no. You've got to. You believe. You see, you believe totally and absolutely, and you believe. And then there are days, and business people said it earlier, and the lads know there's days up and there's days down, and there's terrible days. There's days that you planned and you planned and you planned. I remember sending a fella to the States to train back in my early days. It was my first great athlete, Sean Carlin. I remember sending him to the States, to California, to train with the West Germans that time. And I thought, I'm building this man towards the Olympic Games. 9 months he spent training and it was going brilliant. First competition in Ireland, hamstring. It's over. And that's it. That's devastating. That's absolutely devastating because you've got to get back up after it, but it's devastating for you because your whole head's in it. That was just one-on-one. And then, there's things like that happen to you. And you build teams, you don't achieve. You thought you could achieve. You were nearly there. It didn't happen, And you, the leader, you've got to take it. You've got to turn it round. You've got to turn it round. And
how do you do that,
well,
Patsy?
You actually don't know how you do it. It's an ability that you either have or you haven't. You're either in control, or you're able to read it, or you're able to do it, or you can't. And you're useless if you can't. Because at the end of the day, they're looking for leadership from you. And this is about leadership. They're looking for leadership. Because you've got to get them out the door again. You've got to get them out the door, give them a bit of time. Some of them need maybe many more hours than others, but you'll worry about them. You'll worry about them, the team, the group. You'll worry about them. How quick can you get them back into your head again? Because if you let them go too long, you're going to be worrying. So you're all part of the worry game. So you can't put yourself in that position. So you've got to think for them, make decisions for them. I remember I built the team one time out of Finn Valley, and get youngsters that started with me at the very beginning at primary school kids. And I built them into a team that won nationals. They won 12 nationals in a row, 12 years in a row. They beat the Dublin crowd, which was always a motivation for me.
That's your why.
That's right.
I knew we found it.
That was always a motivation. That was the motivation.
It's like a therapy session for you, Patsy, isn't it?
So there it is. So basically, and I built the team won, and they were in the Champions Cup in Europe year in, year out, and all of that. So this is all confidence building for me as well, because I was learning through them, and they had no experience, so they were dependent on you. You're the leader, and you've got to take decisions, and you've got to be brave, and you've got to do what you've got to do. So I was good. When I said that thing there, when the audio came back, I thought, oh, Jesus, I'm telling everybody that I'm good at what I was doing. I knew I was good at what I was doing, so I wasn't feared to say it. So that's kind of me,
To come back to you, Jim McGuinness, I mean, listening to the three of you speak here, as an observer, I would say your determination, your focus, your leadership skills were innate in you. You were born with them. I think that's what Patsy's saying. You've either got it or you ain't got it. Do you agree with that, Jim McGuinness, or do you think it can be taught?
No, I don't. I wouldn't fully agree with that because I do think that a lot, like it's both. I think, and it's been proven that it's both. Genetics have a big part to play in it, and what's passed on, including grit, including determination, including resilience. But equally, a lot of it can be developed within the environment. I know there was a laugh there when Patsy said about the fear part, but fear is an emotion. And it's a very strong emotion, and strong emotions drive people, and that's the reality. I want to win this and I want to win that. That's all beautiful and joy, and being able to absorb things. That's all brilliant. But the powerful emotions are the ones that are the darker ones, and fear is a part of that. And that was a massive massive part of it for me as well, because I was, I don't know, maybe 37 years of age when I took over Donegal. If you want to win the All-Ireland, you got to win Ulster. That was my opinion. It still hasn't changed. And here was I at 37 years of age, and there was Mickey Hart. And Mickey Hart has 3 All-Ireland titles and 5 Ulster championships. And who am I? And imposter syndrome is kicking in pretty heavily then, to think that, you know, I'm going to come in now and I'm going to upstage him and go and start winning championships, you know. So that fear is a very important part of it. There wasn't a morning that I didn't wake up that I didn't think of Mickey Hart. Not a morning. That's
Mickey Hart was in the bed beside you, was he?
Mickey Hart sharpened the pencil. He sharpened the pencil, and I knew that if I wasn't on it, that he was going to nab me, and not just him, and anybody, to the point where I would develop a game plan, and I would have the game plan in my head, and I would work out what Mickey Hart would do to that game plan, and then this is what I would do then, in that moment. And that's why I think we were always successful in the third quarter, because in the first quarter, first 20 minutes, we would be able to run the game plan. He's studying it, he's analysing it, and then he's making his adjustments, and at half-time, that would be his moment to nail that, and then we always came out with a second plan at the start of the second half. And when
because you knew how he was going to react.
We knew how he was going to react, but it was a double switch, because they had spent the last 15 minutes talking about what we were doing up to that point. And then the second switch was normally the time where you could catch them on the hop, because they were putting their energy into that pot when really we were over here doing something else. And that didn't happen by chance. That happened because I knew that he would have it worked out after 20 minutes.
To go back to, I suppose, the earlier point that I was making about whether or not you can teach this to people, you said yes, you can. So how do you create that environment that you bring out the focus, the grit, the determination, the planning, the resilience in people that you need to be successful?
I think it's the exact same thing in business. It's standards. It all boils down to standards. You know, it's what time you want to get up at in the morning. You know, how far do you want to go? Is this an idea? Or, you know, you could have an idea, for example, like we have an established attack, you know, and you could say, right, we want to be good in established attack, but out of that established attack, we could have 20 things, 20 KPIs that are coming out of that. And that's the way that we do try to build a game plan. So you could have maybe 6 or 7 or 8 pillars of a game plan or a strategic plan for your business, but each of them could have 20 points coming out of them. And so if you spend enough time in any of those bubbles and you start to develop that bubble at a very deep level, that, as Patsy says, like, there is no 9 to 5. You're living that, and you're driving it and living it and driving it and emotionally invested in it and running it across in your mind. That over time you're saying, geez, how's that now? That's 7 things by 20. Like that's not possible for fellas to keep that in their mind and absorb it. But eventually the 20 does become 1. The nuances of the 20 become 1. So then you're not thinking about 140 things, you're thinking of 7 things. And that actually has been proven as well in terms of the development of expertise in a range of areas. But that also has been proven in chess, where chess masters think that way and develop strategy that way. And so they'll look at different areas that they can hurt the opposition, but they're able to put 49 into 7. So when they look at the board, they're not looking at 49 moves, they're looking at maybe 7 moves. And the way they proved that, it was actually somebody from MIT that did it, the way they proved that was they showed the board and then they took the board away. And then they only showed the chess master the board for 5 seconds, and they took the board away, and the chess master was able to recreate the board because they seen the patterns. They didn't see 49 moves, they seen the pattern, and then they were able to recreate the board -1. One thing was out of place. But when they then done the exact same experiment with a chess master, and they didn't create the board in line with chess, they just created randomly, they were terrible. So it wasn't that they had a brilliant memory. It wasn't that. It was they were able to go at a very, 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 very deep level about something that they knew a lot about. And it's the exact same thing with building a game plan. They have to know exactly, and this is the major challenge that we're facing at the minute. I'm sitting here now, and really I should be at home working out the new rules because they've just changed them the day again. So we have
So
to
if
go
we
back.
lose against Tyrone, we're going to, is it Tyrone's the next match? We're going to blame
Yeah,
the
Tyrone, but we have
Donegal
to go-
Enterprise
Yes.
office.
We have to go back now and look at the new rules, and now you've got to keep 4 back. That is a massive implication on that established attack we're talking about. On build-ups, going to allow teams to go man-to-man. So all of that now has to process.
Okay. I want to speak to you about some of your strategies and your theories that you have advocated or implemented to get your own success. Joe, you talk about the 2% theory. Talk to the audience. Tell them what that is.
It's a bit like what Jim's talking about. You know, we have to be innovative and we have to be able to adapt it on the move. That's what we do in the sport that we're in. But I think that the resemblance of what we do and what Jim's talking about is behind me and my team when they're in the car, whatever. We have a mathematician, we have a weather expert, and they talk together. And basically what they're trying to figure out is what exactly is the game plan that they see that can move me forward without me expending more energy. Right? So we've even gone to the extent now where currently we're working with a new project where we're working with sensors that tell us how we move the bike through the air more efficiently. So effectively, we know what the game plan is, we know what the course is, we know where we need to get to, but we're on the move, we're adapting as we go.
And is that 2%, sorry to cut across you, is that you're looking for 2% improvement? That's the reality.
We're looking for 2% in the moment.
In the moment.
In the moment. It's 2% in the moment. And if you continually lap over 2% in the moment, even if you fail, because we also refer to the word fail as failing forward. Right? We don't fail. We've learned from what has not worked right now. So in the next 2%, we're going to try and improve that. So we're lapping on 2 and 2 and 2. So because of distance, which we're involved in, which is not unlike business, where you're not going to create, like Jim has said, like you're not going to create a successful business in a week. You're just not unless you're going to hit the lottery or something like that. So it's a long haul. Well, endurance racing is like that. It's a long distance. So effectively, there's a term that I don't particularly like, but we use it in cycling, like in marginal gains.
Say that again?
Marginal gains.
Marginal gains.
Right, and really marginal gains is about smart people working out the how-tos. How do I get this 2% right now? And if it fails, is that going to be 0.5 or 0.25? And when I get to the next increment, I'm going to try for 2 again. So if we work continually for 2 and we fall a little bit short, then we've worked it out. And that's what we're continually doing on an ongoing basis. So it's a continual adaptation all the time on the move. And that's what makes it very interesting. And it's also where, you know, the rider becomes the person in my sport where he's just pedaling the bike. Right? I can't shift from that position. All I can do is pedal the bike that direction until someone tells me to turn or someone tells me to go faster or slower. Right? Because in some cases they ask you to go slower. Right? Because that's about conserving energy. So you have a nutritionist who's sitting going, oh no, I want you to slow up because the wind's doing this here or whatever, and we'll get back to where we need to be further down the line, but we're not going to put you in a position where it's going to be negative in 50 or 100 or 200 miles time, because we're talking huge distances here. Like, so the strategy and how you play that and how you view it and how you see the gameplay is crucial. And the smart players, like Jim has just said, it's almost picture in their head. Like they see the pattern and they know what they need to do. And if you watch the competitors, you'll see them play the same game. So it's almost like a toing and froing process all the way to the finish.
I think it's clear, listening to the 3 speakers today, that success has been all-consuming. Is it okay to say that? That this is something that lives in your minds 24/7. That's what it's taken to get to where the 3 of you are. Do you believe in burnout, Patsy?
Yeah.
And do you have any strategies to prevent it?
No, I'm going through it at the minute. No, it's of course it is. Of course, you give it everything and you get to a certain point, and other people talk about burnout, and you think, "Ah, geez, that'll never come my way." But as you get older again, back at that, you know, you can assess yourself better, and I do now realise that yes, the energy isn't there like it was before, and it's what people describe as burnout. But uh, look, that's life. That's you can't go at that rate. You're going to hit the wall at some level and at some speed, sometime. So, yeah, I do believe in it. Yeah.
There's just one last thing that I wanted to ask you about, Jim, before we go to the audience, and it was your rule that you implement and that you advocate when it comes to getting the best out of a team, and that's the 1/3 rule.
Yeah, just on the burnout, a lot of the research is saying now there's no such thing other than in your own mind. So if you have a young player and the young player's playing in a lot of teams and they feel under pressure because of that, then there's a very high risk that child is going to get burned out, or a senior player for that matter. But if you have somebody that sort of is just effervescent and hungry for it and enjoying it and excited about it, then those sort of same symptoms don't seem to be as prevalent with it. So it's very interesting from a psychological point of view. There's also the research saying that there's no such thing as stress. The stress is a perception of stress. So we're sitting here today. My father was a taxi driver, right? So he could get into the car and he could go to Dublin and one day could flinch out of him, But if you're sitting here and you've never drove a car in your life before and it's a life or death situation and you've got to get to Dublin, you're like, so stress in that moment is a real thing. But for the other person, it's not. So it's the perception of stress is the key thing, and it's the same with burnout. As what the research is heading towards now, that it doesn't actually exist if in your mind you're fresh and you're clean and you're hungry and you're ready to go. But if it does exist, then you have a problem, and it is very real, and it needs to be taken care of. And that's where sometimes people keep on pushing through in those moments, and the effects, as Patsy said, as you do, it's inevitable that you're going to hit that wall.
Well, do you have any strategies then to try and prevent those feelings of stress or burnout?
For myself,
and for the team?
Well, the big change from the last time I was in till now is absolutely, to Joe's point, absolutely everything. It's microscopic now in terms of data and how you use the data, where a player's at, where the player needs to get to, particularly even the guys coming back. That we know what the top player's doing, so we know what that is, the level. We also know now he needs to get to X amount of kilometres in a session. A percentage of that needs to be explosive, percentage of that needs to be high-speed running, accels, decels. All of these things have to be at a comparable level to the boys that are on the pitch before you put them back in again. So everything now is a number. Sleep is hugely important for us. We train earlier now than I did the last time around, because I want them all in their beds I want them all in their homes by 9:30, so they have an hour to relax before they go to bed. Whereas before, I would have done longer sessions and we would have started later, and they were getting home at 10:30, maybe at night, and then they couldn't get to sleep. And if you don't get to sleep when you're supposed to get to sleep, then you could be in trouble for the rest of the night. Hotels, we have a man in charge of sports science with us, and he will be in that hotel 4 hours before we arrive in the hotel, and every one of the rooms will be the same temperature, which is 19 degrees. If you want to get a proper night's sleep, it needs to be cooler than warmer in order to sleep. All of these things, I'm sure you're doing that every night of the week. All these things.
You're too lenient. I'm in bed at 9.
But you're training for 8 hours a day. But all of these things, all of these things are probably the life that Patsy and the Olympic athletes were living for generations. All of these things are mainstream now across sport, and so of course you have to pay attention to everything.
Okay,
in order for it to be at a top level.
I just want to go back before I wrap up, but I promise I will, because I think one of the things that you're absolutely recognised for, Jim McGuinness, is your ability to bring the best out of people. We've seen that in the previous team, and we see in the current team now. It is, I think, most people would agree, quite exceptional. How do you do that? Is this your 1/3 rule?
I think the 1/3 rule is like a part of it. So my 1/3 rule is that 1/3 of any group, your organisation, everybody, 1/3 of that group, are very, very self-determined, self-focused, easy managed. They just will push boundaries left, right, and centre. Michael Murphy has come back, and he's just pushing boundaries. That's what he is. That's who he is. But we have a lot of them. To be fair, we have a lot of fellas that are in that space. And then there's this middle band, and the middle band are very intelligent. They're very intelligent, and if it's not right, then they will smell a rat and they will not commit, and that's the reality. They need to understand this is where we are, this is where we're headed, and this guy probably has a chance of getting us there. So if you can move that middle band from where they are to the higher levels, normally the bottom tier will follow suit. And you don't have to get them to the top level, but if you get them from the bottom tier to the middle tier, all of a sudden 66% are in that top tier and the other 33% are in the middle bracket, then you have a high performing team. And then once you've
So
got
it's about really getting to know each individual member of your team, isn't it? And
Absolutely.
identify which third are they in.
Well, you'll do that easily. You'll do that easily. Like if you think about your own team now, that'll come in the blink of an eye, you know. And then you're into motivational orientations, task orientation, ego orientation. Some people in the office, and you know, you tell them to do something that's done. You don't have to say it to them. You know, we have a mathematician as well, actually, in our backroom team, and you know, I'll be talking in meetings, and when I'm talking in meetings, he will come to me then with data, you know, and I don't have to tell him go and look at it. He hears me saying it, he goes and look at it, he brings it to me. So those people are very task oriented. They want to do it. They're on it. Other people are ego oriented, and they have to be managed differently. Like, you know, so if you have somebody very high in ego. Ego people always make comparisons. They're always constantly making comparisons. What type of car do you drive, and how big is your house, and so on and so forth. All these things are going on. So for them, the last thing they want is for somebody else to have something that they don't want. So for them, the opposition, no, we're winning this game. He's not winning this game. Like, are you the best midfielder, or is he the best midfielder? And the whole country's watching that. You understand that? That's rocket fuel for that person, because they are ego orientated. You know, if you say to them, I need you to do a good job, you know, but if you say to them, the country's watching this, and we know that you're the top man,
but he thinks he's the top man too.
And on top of that, there's a cup here. So do you want him to walk out the stadium with the title of the best player in the country and the cup? No, that's our cup. That's our cup. We're going to have that. So all of those conversations are different. You know, I just need Paddy McGrath, the most task-oriented person you'll ever meet. You know, what's the job? Just look you in the eye. What's the job? What do you want me to do? Job's going to be done. So all of these, and I think for anybody in your group, you'll work that out. People can do that with Man United, although that's a very controversial conversation. Maybe not the best example, but let's say Liverpool. People, you know, you can look at a team and you can say that guy is completely task-oriented, because there's a selflessness. There's an honesty, there's, you know, it happens, there's no thinking, there's no in-between, there's no grey areas. The other people, they need to understand and be convinced about the project.
All right, I'm going to go to the floor. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, the hands are up. Let's get the microphone over here. Just keep the microphone good and close to your mouth there. Here we go.
I'm just going to make sure here I have this one. Are we okay, yeah?
Jim, you want some more? There you go.
I would just like to ask the panel there, what should people who are sports persons convicted of serious crimes, should they be sanctioned by their organisations? I mean, I'm not. Okay. They are not role models. They appear a couple of weeks after conviction in some instances, and that. Okay. And I do see that Finn Harps recently terminated the contract of a player who was convicted of drunk driving.
Okay, do you know what? I think we'll probably take that question perhaps outside of this particular panel discussion, because I'm just so conscious of time, and the focus today, I suppose, is really on leadership, but I'm sure somebody will come to that.
They say that the art of management is delegation. Can I challenge the panel to show us examples of, I know you show the leadership yourselves in terms of you being at the forefront of the organisation, but in your estimation, to help us as business people, what's your views on this art of delegation, the teams that you surround yourself with to support you in doing the excellent job that you guys do with your teams and players?
Right, so you're going to build a team. When you get a job, you're going to build a team around you, and you're going to be as good as the team that you have around you. And basically, yes, delegation, of course, but you have to have confidence in your team. Therefore, you have to make the right decisions and be brave about making the right decisions. with the right people around you, and build the team. Absolutely build the team. I was given an example. We were chatting briefly up earlier to Jim. I said, you know, I went to World Championships one time in Osaka, and under the radar, because my organisation wouldn't agree, I took a sports psychologist, and he was Enda McNulty, who was a left full back or something for Armagh, and he had gone into sports psychology, and he was brilliant because he brought a GAA dimension, a mentality to these guys who had never faced that before, and I used them in training camps. So that was an add-on, that was an example, that was just one example that I tried out, and it worked, and very big time, and it made a difference because an athlete that was involved, particularly in a one-on-one, performed and got a medal. But the bottom line is, yes, build a team, but the decisions around building the team, that's when it's key. And then you delegate, because you have to have confidence, and you have to involve them, and they can't be just standing beside you, and they can't be walking after you. So basically, you've got to let them at it. Now, that will bring you on to something else too if you're in business, like, for example, succession. I mean, moving on to somebody else, having confidence in them, and you know, that's a wild challenge, and the changeover in positions and all that. But I'm way off on a different tangent now. But absolutely delegate, but make the right decisions. Take your time, get the right people around you, because they could cause you trouble if you don't.
Okay, one more question. I think there's one over here.
This question is for the panels. I just want to ask you how big visualization plays part in your sessions, and how much does it carry in your victory?
Can you repeat the question, sorry?
Yeah. So you just hold the mic up as close as you can.
I just want to ask you the visualization or the manifestation.
Oh, visualization?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
All right. Jim, do you want to take that, visualization?
Yeah, listen, I think for me, for the team, for everybody, you have to have the picture in your mind. There's so many levels to this. You know, it's the big picture, it's the daily picture, it's the detail within the detail, you know, and so you really have to be focused on all of those things, some more than others. So, for example, at the end of the season, going into the next season, the big picture visualization is really important. We ran out of juice coming down the stretch against Galway. You can't run away from that. What happened in that moment? What do we need to do to change that the next time we're in that situation? Do we need depth? That's why we asked 5 people to come back in that had already played for Donegal. So you have to have that sort of the visual experience in your head, constantly rolling and rolling and rolling to understand how you can move forward. But like say next week when we play Tyrone and Letterkenny here, it's a different picture. It's getting fellas and yourself to understand what's needed for this game, what's going to be the crucial moments in this game, where the threat's going to come from, how do we nullify those threats, and you're constantly rolling that around. Michael Johnson, the sprinter, I remember read an article on him, and he'd I don't know if you remember or not, Patsy would be able to tell this story better than me, but when he ran, he was so relaxed, and he just sat back, and his arms were going, and like, it was like, Jesus, this guy actually is he about to win the gold here? You know, he was just so relaxed. And he was asked in the press conference afterwards, you know, how can you do that? Like, how can you just come around that bend and put your shoulders back and just cruise to the finishing line? And he says, well, I ran the race 800 times this week. And they were like, what? You know, but he had ran the race 800 times in his mind, and he ran it 100 times in each lane. And he says, I ran it, you know, out in front. I ran it from coming behind. I ran it not feeling well. I ran it feeling like I was injured. But he says, most of all, I ran it like I ran it in the last 200 metres. I ran it out in front, being relaxed and going.
He ran it as the winner.
He ran it as the winner. And that visualisation, you know, you actually, you know, and there's brilliant research around this as well. Your mind doesn't know. When you're visualising something in your mind doesn't know if it's actual reality or you're creating it. Your mind doesn't know that. And so research out of Stanford there, where they got people to do free throws, and they had an intermediate group and another intermediate group, but the other intermediate group weren't practicing free throws, they were only practicing them in their mind. And there was no statistical difference after a month between the people who were practicing in their mind and the people who were physically practicing it, because your mind doesn't know. And so if you're an elite athlete and you're doing X amount of practice a week, but you're also seeing it, and seeing it and seeing, like I was saying to the boys, see the breaking ball, see where the ball's going to break, see yourself in that situation. You know, you have to constantly be churning that, and then when the moment comes, then you're not dealing with the moment. You've seen the moment 800 times. You've seen the moment and lived the moment, and for that to be successful, you have to bring all the senses to bear on it. You've got to smell the opposition, feel the opposition, feel the heat of the day, feel the heat of the competition, and bring all of those things to life to make that moment so as vivid as possible in your mind. And then when you do that, there's a saying in psychology, fear lies in the unknown. And that is it's probably the same in business. Fear lies in the unknown. So if you can create a situation where there is no unknown, then you can be more comfortable to just go and compete.
All right.
You know, sorry, Jim, just coming on that again. Belief, the word belief comes into my mind when visualization comes in. And if the bar's at 220, you've got to see yourself over the bar before you get over the bar. And you've got to practice that. And you see them. If you see the high jumpers, they're talking themselves over the bar ever before they get over the bar. But the other side of that, in my lifetime, in about 15 years, Bolt was the key. Usain Bolt, he was the big star. So in the warm-up area, you tended in the warm-up area all the time to keep an eye on him, because one of my friends, one of my club mates, Ricky Sim, Donegal man, was his manager and his agent, and we were close, and we used to mix it a bit. But he didn't give a fucking shit. He just used to act the agent. He used to completely act the agent. He visualised nothing, and he was such a natural. He was such a natural. So it's all individual. It's all about different people. It's all about different approaches, and it's about belief. But he acted the agent. He would be lying down on the ground, and a couple of boys just messing. They'd be messing, and he would just get up. The call came. He would get up, and he'd walk out on the line. He'd act the agent on the line, but he had so much belief, and that was his way of dealing with it. So he didn't do what the high jumper did. He didn't do that. He knew that he could do it. You saw him. He could nearly wait to 2 meters from the line, and just then, he was such a freak. But that's different people, different stories.
But I think it's a brilliant point. You know, there's some players, and the less they think, the better they are. Okay. That is a fact. That is a fact. And there's some players that are very, very, like Ryan again in the room.
And some of them get on far too much to it.
Exactly. And then there's some of them that you need. They are your leaders, and they can think strategy when you can't get a message across to them. And they're going to be that 3 or 4 people like that there that can actually be the athlete and be the cerebral thinker. Yeah. And then there's another cohort where the less thinking that's involved, the better, and they're going to be at their top level.
Okay. So it's trial and error to figure out which one you are.
Bolt used to be, just on that other side of it, just quickly, I'll stop there. Bolt was like a young fella in the playground at school. That's what he was like. That's what he was like in the warm-up. Acting the Egypt, crowd of Jamaicans acting the Egypt. And then out he walked, game face on, and you saw him. He used to punch with, the play with the guys that give him the gear. He did all that. And then he would eat a whole lot of chicken nuggets and it was all over. So basically, that's different people, different stories. That's it. You know, I remember late at Moscow, and Ricky had to go away halfway around bloody Moscow looking for chicken nuggets for him. And that's behind the scenes kind of nonsense that goes on too. So you never would imagine it if you didn't live through it. So it was such a different world. But what you see on TV and what you see behind the scenes, and he used to always bring a boy with him for the crack. That's a truth. This other Jamaican boy, he was everywhere with him. He couldn't run out of your bloody road. They brought him. This, I don't know why he started chatting about Bolt, but it was intriguing. It was
that was
his.
He had a strategy there.
He had a strategy. Of course, that was his strategy. Well, the boys put up with his strategy because it worked. It worked. You know what I mean?
Well, it definitely worked. All right, look, I think we're going to leave it there. My thanks to Jim McGuinness, to Joe Barr, and to Patsy McGonigal. I am going to invite Brenda Hegarty to the stage to close today's event. Just give us 2 minutes.
All right, well, go Ramila my hugaf. Thanks a million to. First of all, just a final few words. This is our final event of Local Enterprise Week, and what a finale we've had. We've had the most wonderful week. which interestingly our theme was belief and believe, and what belief we have in the panellists that we had today. First of all, just like to thank the venue. What a wonderful host they have been, and for a wonderful showcase of our Donegal food. Our partners, because Local Enterprise Week is not just about Local Enterprise Office, all of our partners. In particular, I want to acknowledge our Caithfirleach Donegal County Council, Niamh Kennedy, who has given so much of her time today. To our other partners, all of this and the financial support that we get is primarily through Enterprise Ireland, and Regional Director is here today, Maeve Conahan, so thanks a million, Maeve, and Donegal County Council. We also have other partners in the room. I'm not going to name them all, but just to acknowledge Udris, who have brought some of their businesses along today, ETB and ATU, and all of the other partners that you know who you are. We really appreciate your support. Food Coast Donegal and Creative Coast, and to every one of our exhibitors, because this is all about business, and when we talk about our why, it's all about encouraging more people to start and grow businesses in Donegal, because Donegal Abu, we're all backing Donegal in everything, so that we have a county where people can stay, can live, can invest, can work, and grow world-class businesses from the county. I want to acknowledge our MC, our fabulous MC, a fellow Letterkenny lady like Grace. So Ciara has done a lot of events for us. She's impeccable in terms of her professionalism, and well done again, Ciara. Thanks, Brenda. To our panellists, thanks a million, our sporting panellists, and that's the great thing about this job. You get to hear different voices, and some voices back again like Jim, but just each time they never miss a beat. So thanks a million, Patsy, Joe, Jim, and to our wonderful earlier panellists, Caroline, Willie and Edward, so thanks a million. Want to acknowledge our suppliers, AV, React for our videography, Mary in the right angle for our PR, and Joe for always be snapping and producing great photos. Doing a lot of photo shooting, so he's well on tune, so thanks a million. And last but not least, I want to acknowledge our team, Grace in particular, who was the idea behind this, and what a wonderful idea it was, which we brought a number of our different events into one overall summit. And one of our purposes is to try and make sure that businesses in Donegal get the same access to the great speakers, great summits that maybe in our urban Dublin or whatever. So it's just wonderful to be able to bring that expertise and professionalism into Donegal. So just want to acknowledge the team right across, and some who are not here today, but you talk about a team, we have a fabulous team that delivers out week on week. And just to conclude, just to say, we're going to give gifts to our panellists now in a moment, but there's a gift for everybody, because the Local Enterprise Office is the gift that keeps on giving. So please do remember that. We have so much support, thanks to the government, thanks to the local authority, thanks to Enterprise Ireland, that is available. So regardless of what your challenge is, where you want to be, to leave the last word to Caroline, our earlier speaker. Tomorrow is International Women's Day, so a big shout out to all the women. But Caroline mentioned think big but start small, and that's where everything begins. So really encourage you this year to think big, grow your business through the Local Enterprise Office. So, Míle maith, I think I have said everything I needed to, but apologies if I haven't. I just want to end by giving a beautiful Donegal tweed scarf to each of our panellists. So, Malloy's, who is one of the exhibitors here today, and we're going for the PGI status for Donegal Tweed just to encourage that local and distinctiveness that we are special. And last year I did shout out that I am a native Pedigo woman, as many of you'll know, so I'm really looking forward to welcoming Jim back. I've lost the months now in terms of when they actually come across the border, but Ryan will definitely be coming across the border, and Jim with the Ulster and the Sam Maguire, so no pressure.
No pressure. No pressure.
Thanks a million.
Thank you.
There's no escape for you. They're coming for you.